Dometic RM1350 refrigerator for RVs. I'll be doing a diagnostic and repair video on this particular model of refrigerator, but this will also apply to other models of Dometic refrigerators, as well as a lot of it could apply to other brands such as Norcold. The problem I was having with this refrigerator is that it would work on electric mode, but it would not work on gas mode. So we're going to go through the diagnostic that I did and try to figure out exactly which component's having a problem. So the first thing we want to do is make sure we have our batteries turned on, so we have some lights working there, as well as the gas turned on. You know, check the simple things. If you don't have either one of those on, it's not going to ignite. Next, open the refrigerator. There's actually some startup instructions here down at the bottom. Simply push the on-off button and you should get some lights. At this point, I'm not plugged in to an outlet or to service, so it's actually going to try to light the gas side. And if you listen closely, you could hear that it was running. Now, if it does not ignite on gas, you're going to get an error code up here. And in my case, I believe it was an E1. That was telling me from the service manual. Okay, and this is downloadable online. You can search through here and you'll find the error codes, and that will tell you which component to focus on. As I mentioned, my code was an E1, and E1 refers to a hardware fault in the gas operating system. Test the upper and lower controls, the solenoid, the harness, etc., etc. So we're going to go through and take a closer look at each one of those components and see if we can't figure out what's going on. Okay, safety first. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses. You're going to be working on a gas appliance, and you need to be wearing safety glasses and make sure you protect yourself. Next, make sure you have a fire extinguisher handy. Pull your fire extinguisher out, make sure it's next to you. It might be what saves the day if something goes wrong. If you've never accessed your refrigerator, you're going to need to take this cover off, and all you need to do is turn these 90 degrees. If you can't do it by hand, put a coin in there, maybe a key, something like that. Turn that 90 degrees and it should pull straight out. Okay. Make sure when you put this back in that those are secure. There's more than one of these laying alongside the interstate, so you want to make sure you get that on good. Some of the components inside your refrigerator. I'll start over here in the far corner. This is the control board back here. Inside there's a cover on here that you can take off. Unfortunately, that means you might actually have to take this entire bezel off with these screws in the corner in order to get to that. Sometimes you can get to them, sometimes you can't. In there you're going to find a couple fuses. You want to check them, make sure that they're okay. You might even have some fuse holders out here. This basically is one I put in for my fans. There'll be another one down here. I think that's for my ice maker. But check all of those. Just do a quick check of all the wiring. Did something come off? Is one of these connectors not on good? You want to check all of those. Okay, next we're going to move over. This is your gas line, right? So you want to make sure that nothing appears to be wrong with that. There's a little valve here, and you'll see there's a slot in there. That slot needs to be in line with the gas line, meaning that it's going to allow gas to flow through there. You can turn that 90 degrees. That is a shutoff valve, besides the shutoff you have on your main tank. Then you've got your flue back in here. Here is a thermo fuse. So there's actually a little button in the center of it. I'll get in there close enough for you to see. That is possible, that can trip. And if it does, it's gonna shut everything down. So check that. And then here you've got your heating elements on the electric side. So if your refrigerator's not working on the electric side, you can follow these wires down and ohm these out. In the service manual, it'll tell you how many ohms it expects to see. This particular refrigerator, the RM1350, actually has two heating elements. So it's possible one goes out and one doesn't go out. They do tie together in a series, so that would make your ohm reading be way off. So if you have a problem with electric, definitely check that. In my case, I've got a problem with the gas side. So we'll take a look at that here. To the gas part of this refrigerator, obviously the gas line coming in, you need to have your gas on. You've got to make sure you have gas all that simple stuff. This here is the gas valve. It's a couple inches long, actually ties in behind here. Behind there, in your flue area, you also have an igniter. So if you're turning your fridge on and you hear it snapping, chances are your igniter is good. However, there is an adjustment on the igniter. Again, if you look through the service manual, it'll tell you what the gap needs to be on the igniter. And that igniter is held in with a couple screws. It's possible it could jar loose going down the road, you know, or something like that. So that is something to check. But before we have to start digging in and taking all of this stuff apart, I suspect there's a different problem with mine that we'll go over here. So let's talk about the diagnostic that I did to try to figure out why I wasn't getting gas to my unit. So this here, again, is the solenoid that's going to control whether or not there's any gas flow. I first started off by checking the voltage across these two connectors here when it was trying to ignite, and I should be reading 12 volts. Okay, you're only going to have 12 volts on there while it's igniting. As soon as it fails or the computer board decides to shut it off, you're not going to have any voltage there. So it's going to take two people, one to hit that button and one to be out here reading this. Next, what I did is you can remove these two connectors, and you want to ohm across here. So get your ohm meter out and put one lead on each side and see what you get for ohms. Now there's different, you know, solenoid valves have different ohm readings, but essentially you want something in the 50 to 80 range. If you have something significantly out of that range, chances are this solenoid is bad. And I want to note that this is not the original solenoid in this refrigerator. That's the component that failed on me. So this is a replacement, and that's what we're going to talk about here. The solenoid that was in this was from a company called CEME, C-E-M-E, and it was actually orange in my unit here. That component failed, so what I did was I reached out to Dometic and called their customer service and asked them if I could get a replacement solenoid, and they told me no. They said the only way you can replace this is by replacing this entire gas valve assembly with the solenoid. So I said, okay, what's that going to run me? $225. I said, that's a little ridiculous when all I need to replace is a solenoid. And the support person proceeded to tell me, well, it actually gets worse than that. I can't sell you one. Because it's a gas part, we're not allowed to sell them to individuals. We can only sell them to a dealer. So you'll have to go to a dealer or some online supply dealer that would sell you the entire gas valve and the solenoid. Well, I didn't give up there. I decided to track down CEME, the company themselves. And I called them and I spoke to some folks at their company explaining my situation, that I needed this solenoid. And they confirmed, yes, we do make that solenoid. However, it is a part that we are only allowed to sell to Dometic. It is a part only for them. So you're not going to be able to get that part directly from us. So that kind of ended that situation. So I wasn't going to give up at that point. I just couldn't see the point on tearing this entire gas valve out to replace a really simple component. So what I did was I did a little more research, and I ended up finding this unit that belonged on a Norcold refrigerator. My local RV sales had some old refrigerators in the back, and they let me go and scavenge some parts, right? So I looked around and I found one that basically was the same shape and had the same hole through the middle, and it looked like, well, hey, maybe that'll work. And when I took a look at it, the specs on the side of it were slightly different. Both of them, both the one from Dometic and both from Norcold, require 12 volts, so I'm okay there. The Dometic required, or actually consumed, 2.5 watts of power. And this Norcold only requires 1.8 watts of power. So I felt comfortable in trying it in my unit because it's drawing less power than the Dometic was. I might have been concerned if it was drawing more that it would put too much of a load on my board over time, or who knows. but drawing less power I felt more comfortable. So I went ahead and replaced this, and this is extremely simple. If you look at the top, this is basically like a snap ring. You pull that off, straight off, and this whole unit will lift straight out. You put the new one on, you put the little C-clip back in, and that's it. Hook up your wires and you're set. For those of you maybe a little nervous about this, let me explain exactly what this solenoid is. Coming out of this gas valve, there is a tube, okay? And you can see the top of it right here. It goes right through the center. That is completely sealed in the gas valve. So if you take this component off, no gas is gonna come out. You haven't exposed anything, because obviously that'd be a safety risk just in manufacturing. So what this actually is a coil. So this is an electromagnet. When you apply a voltage across here, inside of that tube is a plunger. And that plunger has a spring on the top to have its state normally closed. So if there's a failure in your refrigerator, that valve is going to be closed. It's going to slam shut, okay? When you apply power and you energize this coil, it's going to lift that plunger and allow gas to flow through this valve. So it's really kind of a low risk to pull this off and replace it, as long as you're not, you know, bending that tube back and forth or doing anything dramatic to cause a leak. Just pulling that straight off, putting a new one on, straight back, you should be good to go. Again, you're trying to find something that is very, very close to the specifications of what Dometic had, just because of their board might be sensitive to that. This Norcold unit has been in my refrigerator for probably a month now. It's ran for, you know, at least a week's worth of days on gas, and I've had no problem whatsoever. So the good part is you can find these valves from Norcold. You can actually buy the entire gas valve along with the solenoid for somewhere around $30 on Amazon. If you look on eBay, you can actually find these solenoids for probably $15 or less. So I will put a picture here in the video to show you the exact model number, part number that I'm using, so you can, you know, definitely go that route if you feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable or you're worried about a warranty on your fridge, then you're gonna probably want to stick with Dometic and have to pay the price. Dometic, if you're watching this video, this kind of seems to be a common theme in my videos. This is really crazy that you don't offer this part. I'm really getting tired with my RV that I have to replace entire assemblies to fix very, very small parts that are designed by your engineers to be removable and replaceable. You need to provide a SKU just for this solenoid. It's an electronic item. Now, why am I having to replace this part? Because it's an electronic item and you placed it 2.5 inches away from a heat source. This heat source over time is going to cause the solenoid to fail. Now, if you look at a Norcold refrigerator, they put this thing way back here. It's 6 or 8 inches or more away from your heat source. Dometic didn't do that, and I kind of blame them here for why I'm seeing a failure. Again, you know, that's one reason I positioned my fan where I did here, to pull some air in, maybe help keep this thing a little cooler. I don't know if a heat shield around that would be better. There's different things you can think about, but if you're having this failure, send an email to Dometic. Let them know you're not happy that you got to buy a $225 gas valve for a $10 part. It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe if enough of us contact them, complain, maybe we can get some action. So I was able to find the exact OEM replacement for this solenoid. Fortunately, again, not from Dometic and not from CME. I have some contacts in the industry that are able to locate these from wholesalers, and I contacted them, and the only way I could purchase these were in bulk. So I couldn't buy one or two, I had to buy an entire lot. And when I got pricing on those, it was a significant upcharge. You know, they were looking at $45 to $50 each, and I just couldn't justify that. And I had to buy, you know, a pretty good amount of them. And that's why I put the message on the forums that if anybody looking at these, I was considering doing a bulk purchase until I found out what they're charging. And then once I found this Norcold unit would work just fine, at least it's working fine in mine, there was no reason for me to pursue that any further. Again, these solenoids are available from a lot of distributors from Norcold online, again, probably in the $15 range. So that's the direction I went with mine. So if you like this video, you know, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Again, that's the payment that I get for doing these. Place a comment, let me know it helped you out. If you have any other questions or concerns, please let me know. And we'll see you on the next.